Hi everyone, another journey, and today's journey is an entrepreneur, content creator, and recently awakened prophet. She enjoys researching and discovering how science and spirituality converge through various books, podcasts, and the people she finds herself drawn to. She has a BA majoring in philosophy, psychology, and English, and an honours degree in philosophy and English, both from the University of Fort Hare. She sees the practical implications of other people's visions and thinks clearly about what it takes to make things happen. She's not afraid to tackle a job, to start something, or to take practical action. She can spot and usually resolves practical issues quickly. She has an intuitive sense of the needs and wants of others, and has a sense of right that causes her to raise her voice on behalf of others who may be overlooked. She doesn't need to be in the limelight and has a servant's heart that genuinely loves to serve others. She's the oil that keeps the more glorious parts of the organization that from getting stuck. I say no more, but I welcome Tamara to the journey.
Thank you so much for that introduction, David.
You're
Truly
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. And that's just the small part of your bio. There is more, but like I said to you before I started recording, it's about you, and obviously there is fun facts which I could go into, which from reading it's like the Transformation Diva, which I like, superpower, I like, multilingual, I like, personality type mediator. It's fun facts, it's just so much to you. But obviously, it's about you. And obviously, your journey started somewhere. So, can you tell us? And obviously, I don't have a script, so I tend to put, after I read a bit about you, tell us your earliest memories that started your journey.
Yeah, so I guess the earliest journey that I would like to mention right now is when I was in grade seven. I was at it was a school hall. I was busy preparing myself to for like the what do you call it? It was like an acting sort of concert for all of the primary school learners. And I was there getting ready, just walking around, prepping myself up and feeling a little nervous, but I was like, no, I got this. I've been practicing all good. And suddenly I have this headache. Out of nowhere, it started as a sense that I've been here before. I had a sense of deja vu. I was like, what's happening? And then after the deja vu experience, an onset of a headache. It wasn't that hectic, but it was just quite uncomfortable. It went away within a couple of minutes, and I was able to continue the play as I needed to. But those headaches came and went throughout my childhood. I remember I had to sometimes just take some headache pills every now and then, which sucked a lot. And by the time I was an adult, I was able to handle the pain and just say, okay, let me stay away from the pills, let me just try and suffer through it and make sure that, I just rest, get enough water and whatnot. I do not know what those headaches were about. I never actually went to a doctor to understand what it was about. And for me, um, I started smoking weed for just recreational purposes. But I noticed that when I would smoke weed for several months at a time, the headaches would go away. When I'd go back to restraining myself from smoking weed for a couple of months, the headaches would return. And it was just the weirdest thing ever. And I was like, okay, maybe there's some medicine element to weed, whatever. And then I believe this was around the age of 24-ish when I came across, I just started to do some research and I came across some, I think it was a Quora, if not a Reddit sort of thread. And people were asking about these headaches. Everyone was explaining how the headaches appeared, talking about the fact they get a sense of deja vu, and soon after the headache would come in. And I was like, yes, this is me. And one of the comments within that thread spoke about the fact that they actually approached a doctor about it. And the doctor said that it was something called temporal lobe epilepsy. And she explained that by the time she was 27, she hadn't really dealt with the issue and she had like full on epileptic episodes. That worried me quite a bit, but I was
Mm.
like, I do not want to go to a doctor. I've always had just this aversion to the traditional medicine world. So I was like, no, let me not go down that route. Let me just continue smoking weed if I need to. And then if it does get serious, then I would seek help. Last year, um, I just like there was just a lot of complications happening in my life. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And as I was explaining this to a friend of mine, she told me that she's actually a diviner. So, a diviner, for someone that doesn't know, there is someone that speaks to the ancestors and are able to give you advice about your path and what you're supposed to do. And she explained to me after having a little session with me that no, everything that's happening in my life is not because of the frustrations that I'm seeing on the material level. It is my ancestors trying to reach out to me, and they are trying to get me to listen to them and to God's message a little bit more. So that has just been some part of my life besides everything that you have read in the bio. And it was just very interesting to be awakened to that knowledge that there are people out there trying to communicate with me and trying to communicate with so many other people, and we just don't know.
Yeah.
That was quite interesting because a lot of people, like, as I was just doing my research more and more, you'd find that so many of us are going through similar experiences, and Western medicine tries to cover it up and try and make it seem like, no, it's just something up with the brain. There's a chemical imbalance, there's this imbalance, there's that. But once you actually do the research and do the spiritual work, you'll understand that there's so much more to it and it is so much more beautiful.
Yeah, it's a more I know I'm from the Western world, so I got to look at it in the neutral way for this approach, but it's like a more natural way of looking at things. It's like awakening for you because it's like the self-discovery because it's something that's in you that awakens. In the Western world, yes, there is awakening, but it's not announced unless you self-discover it, and not everyone is awakened to it unless you go and explore it, and not everyone is awakened to it because they are afraid of being awakened to it.
It is quite a scary thing because, for the most part, the world as we know it has shunned that part of ourselves. We are made to believe that we are crazy if we even believe it. So even the ones that do understand that, hey, there's something spiritual happening. Yeah, I am going through an awakening of some sorts. A lot of people don't really want to tap into that because of what other people might think or what they might discover when they do tap into it. I remember my sister and I were having this conversation as well, and just like, I get what you're going through, and I think I might be going through something similar, but I do not want to open those can of worms
Mm.
because what I'm going to do if those are just nasty. So a lot of people try and mask it all. I've believed that, people taking drugs, alcoholism, all of these sorts of addictions out here, they are to mask their sense that, hey, there's something deeper, but I just don't want to open those can of worms. I don't
Mm.
want to know what is happening. What if it is really bad? And what if people think I'm crazy? What if I can't handle it? So there's all sorts of fearful conversations that go on within each individual's minds, because not many people are talking about this and opening up about these sorts of conversations. Like for me, I only started knowing about awakenings after I've experienced it. Prior to that, I was not really, I was not, I wasn't really aware of what was happening. Yes, you'd find some people here and there, and you're like, okay, um, within the context of South Africa, like you'd find that there are some people being awakened, but they'd have to wear these weird beads around their arms, or they'd have to dress differently. And for the most part, their sort of appearance and what they were going through was almost shunned. And I remember when I was going through my experiences, because even back in 2021, I approached a spiritual a healer, and she told me that, hey, I think your ancestors are trying to communicate with you. And I was like, if they want to communicate with me, they better come through me directly. They can't send people to tell me that. And at that time, like sometimes when I speak to myself alone, and I would like, hey, if they are trying to speak to me, they should know that I'm not going to do anything weird. I don't want to go to some mountain and do some weird ritual. So I did not understand what it was really about, because the little bit of information that you do get is quite scary and it is quite shunned upon. So now that I do understand, and know why those people went through what they're going through, why I went through what I went through, I'm able not to communicate about it because I'm
Mm.
like, "Hey, it doesn't have to be weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
A-
be
And
creepy."
you touch upon, using, weed, marijuana, cannabis. In today's society, people do say, yeah, medicinal use is okay because it is a way of coping, it's a way of helping certain illnesses. So, I'm not condoning that. If it's a way of helping certain ways of helping, it's okay. And that, I'm not, like I said. So this is why I do endorse if you've got a long-term beneficial use, it's okay. So you don't need to feel bad for using it. So if it was a way of preventing things, it's okay. If you've got a long-term illness, it's okay. It's just, if you've got a long-term addiction, then that's the time to say, okay, you've got a long-term addiction. But if you're using it for a long-term fix to help your long-term illness, it's a different thing. So you don't need to feel bad about taking it.
Mhm.
But if,
Definitely. I don't I don't think there's anything wrong with weed and marijuana, but it is that long-term use and abusing it.
mm,
And when I underwent my spiritual journey, there was one of the messages that I was receiving from my spiritual guide saying that slow down on the weed. In fact, put it for a while if you have to, if you can't just slow down. So in fact, I had to put weed on hold for a couple of months, just because at the end of the day, it was a way for me to mask what was happening. It was a way for me not to listen to those messages that came through. It is a way that it is one of the ways in which, as humans, we sort of turn away from getting spiritual messages. So if you are going to abuse it, that is an issue, but there is nothing 100% wrong with the actual use of marijuana. So I agree with you in that.
and it's the same goes because I know people often have THC as well. If you take THC, which is a form of, it's not the same, but it's the
Mhm.
same principle if you have THC. THC is a way of helping you as well, so you don't need to feel bad as long as you take it in moderation. That's how I look at it. If you do it in moderation, it's fine.
100%.
So going into your present, and obviously you now aware of your awakening. Do you feel like your awakening is making you feel stronger now because you've now discovered your awakening? Do you feel like it's now making you feel a lot better in your own self?
I definitely do think so. I it just it was just one of those things I was like, ah, this makes sense. Whereas previously a lot of things were quite confusing and I was like, why am I a little weird? Why is there so many weird things happening in my life? I remember even as a teenager, I would feel like I am smarter than other kids around me because I'm like, why do they not see things like I do? But at the same time, I was like, okay, maybe I am smarter, but maybe I am just weirder. And now that I've gone through the spiritual awakening and I feel more enlightened, I'm like, "Ah, this makes so much sense." So it definitely has had just that sense of relief for me, which is something that I did not have before. And just now I'm like, okay, now I understand. Whenever I, like, even within like my business, I was told that, like, no, the business that I was focused on before, that is not the business that I was supposed to be in. And I started King Creatives, which is a marketing agency in 2020. But in 2019, I was told that I was supposed to go into the beauty space, but I didn't listen to that message. And now, again, last year with the spiritual awakening, that message came up again saying, you are in the wrong field. You're not using your creative energy in the correct way. And as long as you don't use it in the correct way, you are going to feel like a business is a struggle, which is what was happening to me. I'd feel like every single day, like, the whole hustle mentality, I had undertaken that thinking that this is the only way you can go about it. Whereas now I know, like, it doesn't have to be this hard. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to wake up and be a billionaire one day, but it doesn't have to be a daily struggle just to get clients, just to put yourself out there, just to feel content in your life. And now knowing what I know, I can be like,
Yeah, and I do see that relief in you. It's just that added,
thank you.
it's just that added bonus in you, and you do feel that content. So obviously, going into the future is glowing, and obviously people will want to be wanting to know your success and wanting to get in contact. Can they get in contact with you? And if so, how can they get in contact with you?
So I am most active on LinkedIn. My username is just Tamara Maqabangqa, and that is where people can view my content because I will be sharing content regarding business, regarding my spiritual journey. Everything that I do will be there. And there, anytime someone messages me, even before the spiritual awakening, I was always willing to help out, reach, like respond back to messages, set up 30-minute meetings with people and try and just get them to help them within the business sense. But whatever anybody needs, I am always open to having those conversations.
And I'll make sure I
Yeah,
put the
LinkedIn.
link, and I'll make sure I put the link for your LinkedIn in the description below. The last ultimate question, and I always like asking this question, is inspiration to help people on their journey. What would you say to those people to help on their journey, spiritually, mindfully, whatever you want to describe it? What would you say to them?
The message that I want people to take away today is regarding their creative energies. So every human being on earth has something called creative energy. And this is essentially what your soul wanted you to accomplish in this lifetime. And as long as you are not living in alignment with that, you are going to feel miserable. So I do want people to start really sitting down and thinking like, what am I doing in this world right now? How am I like making a living? Is this where my soul really wants to be? And if not, make that change. Don't worry about what people will think. Don't worry about what could potentially go wrong. When you are living in alignment with what your soul wanted to accomplish in this lifetime, you will be so much happier. I can guarantee that.
I agree to that. And just for reference from my side, if you're in America, wherever you're in the world, just remember, just if you got able to have a card or anything to say you can have cannabis of any description, take it in moderation, cannabis or of any description, but don't overdo it. Take it in moderation. Be safe. Follow what your heart tells you. Be successful and follow Tamara's advice very well. And I'd like to say, Tamara, thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you. And now, a message from Amy. Amy, it's over to you.
Hello, I am Amy Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice. And that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later. The Journey Podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.